Our speaker today is Snyder. We welcome him. His topic is Your Body Never Lies, which is a transformational learning that increases our sense of connection and expands our intuition. Brian will illustrate the mechanics of how to access our intuition and how it shows up in our body language. After accessing our intuition, as our body adjusts, it instantaneously releases stuck energy, increases awareness, and reconnects our intuitive sense. Brian began his spiritual quest at the age of 15 when confronted with his mortality. Since unraveling and healing his malaise, his continued quest for understanding has brought him to many great teachers, the closest of whom have instructed him to bring this new understanding to the public. Brian's perception skills will demonstrate how the mind-body spirit connection becomes sabotaged and how that is quickly reversed. So please welcome Brian.
Thank you. Is this good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just need to still document first. It's a nice crowd that I'm perceiving here and a really wonderful space. I'm not used to presenting in such a welcoming, loving space. Brought up some sadness. But my body doesn't lie, so just enjoy my sadness. It's part of the play. Part of the play today. When I was 15,
Brian?
yes.
Pull your mic to the side a little bit.
Like that? Is that better? Okay. So when I was 15, my cardiologist told me that I had 10 years to live. He said I would not survive having my wisdom teeth pulled, nor would I survive not having them pulled. So that began my spiritual quest. It took me to a lot of teachers. I spent many years going down a lot of false routes that only get us a little ways and give us a little taste, and then there's nothing left. And then about 20 years ago, I found a teacher who actually knew what he was doing. My teacher was born left brain dead. He could not speak. He could not use his mind growing up. Everything he understood about the world, he understood through his feelings, through body sensations. He ended up being able to look at somebody and he could just feel how many brothers and sisters they had, what their job was, what kind of diseases they might have, what their issues are, and he could feel all of this. And by the age of 8 or 9, he was able to help people shift those things out of their body. At age 9, he was driven around the reservation he was born on as a healer. That's also the time that he started speaking. So that's where this comes from. It comes from a teacher who literally, he would kind of laugh at me and say, Brian, you have to teach my material because I'm retarded. I don't know how to share this with people. So when I took his workshops and I could do his techniques, he took me aside and said, figure out how this works so that you can teach it. So I spent the next 20 years unraveling what he was showing me. And that's what I'm going to present to you today in 30 minutes or less. So, I can see that most everybody here has thought about these things before and has felt them. You've probably gone to healers or taken workshops. You're in a very special place here. Believe me, I know. I've been to thousands of places. You're in a very special place. So, I'm going to speak for 20 minutes, well, 15 minutes now. And then I'm going to pick a volunteer for a demonstration. So at that point, whoever volunteers will be on camera. So only the volunteer can want to be on camera, if that's okay. And then I'll take questions after. If, though, during the first 15 minutes you have a question, don't sit on it. Just raise your hand and ask it, or stand up, whatever you want to do to get my attention. Don't let me continue speaking past where you feel comfortable understanding. So we'd really like all of you to get offering here today. I'm used to a whiteboard, so if I turn around to do this, that's what that is.
Maybe some lipstick.
Yeah. I consider myself primarily an intuition trainer, which means I am interested in developing your intuition and you developing your intuition. What I discovered many years ago, though, is that we all have perfect intuition. We all have an amazing connection to the universe that we live in. The intuition is already there. You already know what's going on all the time. You take in 100% of the information coming in to you, air temperature, sounds, traffic outside, my energy, my tears, whatever. You're taking it all in, and then your subconscious mind is trickling out 1 to 2% to your conscious mind. That's the part you're aware of. But your subconscious is aware of everything else going on. And it alerts you when it needs to. And that is one definition of intuition. But there's a conscious sabotage we all do. And an example I love to give, because when I thought I was going to die, I spent my time in bars. So I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I'm just going to drink myself to death. I spent a lot of time playing pool. And this is the point I'm talking about, is when we go to take a shot. So it doesn't matter if you play pool or not, but I mean, anything that you go to do that you've got to line up and measure, and you go to take your shot. And I was a good pool player. When I go to take that shot at the cue ball, there's a time gap from the time you measure and you know you're going to take your shot and you start swinging. There's a time gap between you start the swing until when you hit the ball. And in that little piece of time, you know whether you're going to make the shot or not. You can feel it. You know, if you play pool at all, you know if you're going to make the shot. And the sabotage is when you know you're going to miss, and yet your body takes the shot anyway. And then you miss, right? We all do it. We're like, oh man, I knew I was going to miss. We do that all the time. Like, oh man, I knew that wasn't going to work, and yet I did it. That's the sabotage that my work unravels. So what this work does, just in terms of billiards, is you go to take the shot, you feel you're going to miss, you're like, oh wait, I better not take the shot. And then you remeasure, and you only take the shot when you know it's going to be successful. And then it is successful. There's a level of connection there that we all have, because it's all there in the background. But we consciously sabotage it. So my interest is in unraveling that sabotage that we do. Because if we can unravel that sabotage of doing that thing that we know is going to fail, but we do it anyway, if we can unravel that, then we have access to intuition. Then we can trust our intuition. So when intuition says, oh, turn left here, we actually turn left and find the parking spot that we've been looking for, right? That's what this work is about. So are you ready to hear how we sabotage?
Yeah.
What we do, and we've all done it, and we just can't help it because, well, I'll explain the because in a minute. Anytime something happens that we do not wish to feel, that we cannot feel because it's overwhelming or doesn't feel good or whatever, as children, because no one taught us how to do it, we pushed away the feeling that we didn't want to have. If somebody made us feel bad at school, we pushed away this feeling of, oh, I'm feeling not wanted, I better pretend like that's not happening. Or someone looks at us funny and makes us feel ugly, we push away this feeling of being ugly. Or, we could get our arm broken, and then there's physical pain there, and we push away the sensation of physical pain. We don't want it. That's the sabotage, and that's what I'm going to prove to you in the next 7.5 minutes. What happens when we push away a feeling that we don't want to have, it doesn't just go out into outer space. It goes into our body. And now our body believes that event is continually happening. And because that event is continually happening, our body gets us to respond to it. But those responses end up being inappropriate because that event actually isn't happening anymore. The example of this is the first time I ever asked a girl out on a date. I was in 7th grade, and the cute girl in my class, you know, I said, "You want to go to the movies tomorrow?" Thinking for sure she would say yes, and she laughed in my face. She literally burst out laughing in my face. In front of me and my friends. I mean, my friends were right there, and so I felt totally unwanted and ashamed and totally rejected. And that rejection is what I did not want to feel. I did not want to feel that rejection. So I pushed the feeling away psychically. I pretended like it didn't happen. My friends asked me, "Why is she laughing?" "Oh, nothing, let's go to lunch." You know, just ignore this. But by pushing that rejection away, I ended up feeling rejected by women for the next 20 years of my life. I could not look a woman in the eye without feeling she was about to reject me. I could not ask a girl out on a date unless, you know, their friends for the previous 2 weeks had been approaching me in the hallway being like, "Hey, she really wants to go out with you. You should ask her out." You know, and then after hearing that for a couple of weeks, I'd like get up the bravery to say, "You know what, I want to meet you at the bar," or whatever. I grew up in Europe, so yeah, I drank in high school. But I literally was, I didn't perceive myself as shy. I perceived that I was the kind of person that women just naturally rejected. That's just who I was. And so that was just how things work. So when I met my teacher and had my first session with him, I got on the table and he walked around the table a couple times, and then he took his finger and he poked me right here. He knew exactly where to push. He poked me right here. I'm like, wow, there's tension there. And he said, "Brian, the first time you asked a girl out on a date, did she laugh in your face?" And he said that, and then all of a sudden the picture of her showed up in my face, of her laughing at me. And before I could protest, before I could reject it, right, and push it away, my body realized, oh, that's not happening anymore. That's a memory. It's not real. And by noticing that the picture or the thought, the issue, was not in my mind, but actually stuck somewhere in my body from me pushing away the feeling, that instantly unraveled. I mean, literally, all he had to ask me is, "Hey, Brian, what are you holding right here?" And it popped up, and I saw it, and it's like, oh, that's what I'm holding here. And in that moment, my subconscious did this calculation of, wait, if it's being held here, that means it's not out here. And if it's not out here, then it's not real. It's just a history being repeated. I felt huge relief. I mean, this session lasted like 8 minutes, you know. I get up off the table and my body feels light, and I'm like, wow, thanks, man, this is great. I went home and then forgot I had a session. That night, I went and met my friends at the bar, and within 15 minutes, I had 4 women in front of me, and we're laughing and talking, and they're all competing for my attention, and all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, holy crap, I'm not shy anymore. This is great. The transformation was literally just like that, and my shyness completely went away. Happy to say I'm happily married and have an infant at home now, and it's great. But that process is what I've spent 20 years trying to unravel, because Patrick, well, he could explain it basically. He didn't get orders of magnitude the way that you and I do, because he wasn't born with an intellect. To him, $100 on the table here was pretty much the same as $1,000 on the table here. It's just money. He didn't really get, you know, he would like pull an issue out of my ankle that would leave me ungrounded for weeks, you know, and then I'd feel like, I'm not sure if I feel better or not, but things are different, you know. I spent 20 years not only figuring out what it was he had learned, but also how to use it in a way that keeps us grounded and I suppose I want to say, well, grounded's the right word. You don't want to let go of too much too fast, I think is what I want to say. What I've discovered after working on people for 20 years is that issues that we're ready to let go of bubble up to our shoulders. And that's why when we're stressed, we do this. You know, these aren't earrings. They're meant to be down low. But that's what we do. When we have something to let go of, when we're working on an issue, it comes up to the shoulders. And then we feel this tension here or whatever. So what I do is I help people release issues that have bubbled up to their shoulders. And what happens when you start releasing issues that bubble out of your shoulders is that your intuition opens up. Because when we push away a feeling that we do not want to have, we use our attention to push it away, get it away from us, and then we pull away. And what we leave behind to hold it down is a piece of our attention. And by attention, I mean our capacity to take information in. So every time we have rejected a body sensation or emotional feeling, something just could not or did not want to experience, we took a piece of our ability to take in information, our attention, and we're using it to hold it down. So what happens with this work is, as you reclaim those body sensations that you refused to feel, whether they were last week or 20 years ago, those feelings come. And as you feel them, your body realizes that they're not real, that they're not actually happening right now, that they're just memories, which means there's no drama. This is not storytelling time. The feeling comes up, and before you can complain about it, it's gone. That also reclaims the attention that you used to hold the memory of that feeling down. So every time you reclaim an old body sensation or feeling that you suppressed, you are rewarded with increased awareness. Not only are you rewarded with increased awareness, but this also gets rid of our little programs that we have that none of us like, right? How many times have you gotten upset or triggered and then done or said something, and then later you're like, oh man, I said I'd never do that again, and then I did it again. Those programs are a subconscious way of coping with these events that our body believes are still happening. So if a girl asked me out on a date, I would reject her because I knew she was going to reject me. I had this program in my body. Does that make sense? Any questions yet? Anybody want to shoot me down or challenge me? I feel safe being challenged here, so feel free. The reward is increased attention. Not only increased attention, but as your attention returns to right here, right now, your body starts to recognize the difference between images coming from reality right here, right now, and images coming from your history, images coming from suppressed memories. When your body recognizes that those things feel different, that reality feels different from unreality, your body stops attending to things that aren't real. And it'll start letting go of these old things you suppressed as a kid. It'll let go of them while you're sleeping. You wake up one day and you feel good. You're no longer mad at mom, or you're no longer mad at doctors, and you won't really even know why. Yes?
So is it similar to this? I had an experience when I was a child. So I had an experience when I wasn't a pleasant experience with a male, and this male was coming to visit for the weekend. And I didn't remember this, it was suppressed, and I had had a dream the night before. For maybe 2 or 3 days prior to this person coming to visit me for the weekend, my right hand went completely numb, and I couldn't use it, swollen, numb. By the time they got there, I realized what was going on. I was able to figure out that it wasn't really happening. It was suppressed memory, and it wasn't taking place. It wasn't any longer taking place.
Right.
And within a few hours, the hand was perfectly fine. So similar?
Yeah, because you recognized, you were able to unravel what was going on. There's
And a lot of the
absolutely...
negative emotions that were associated with that also.
They did also...
They didn't disappear right away,
But they unraveled.
Yes.
They unraveled
Yes.
eventually, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
It requires... What happens is events have two parts. They have a thinking part, the intellectual understanding of the event, and then they have the feeling aspect of the event. So everything we experience has two sides. Everything. But when you push away the feeling of something, you separate those two sides. And it's like a rubber band. It's like you take away two sides of a rubber band, and the further apart they go, the more tension there is. This work is about bringing both sides of the rubber band back together to get rid of the tension. Any way you can do that is great. I spent 20 years figuring this out so it can happen really fast. So there's no process, no drama, A lot of healing modalities require us to be like emotive, re-experience, But I I believe that drama does not release trauma. I believe that trauma can be released without drama. Because it's, and I don't put myself out as a healer anymore, but as a healer, I like to say that, we don't have a problem with our history, we have a problem with our imaginations. And this is about, it's not really about healing our past, because our past isn't happening anymore. It's already healed, like this, but we drag it with us because it's been suppressed. So that's actually an imagination problem. So I consider myself more of an Imagineer than a healer. Because it's about fixing because our imagination takes this thing that happened in 3rd grade and blows it up to this crazy life. But that's an issue with imagination. And the good news is that imagination and intuition are so closely tied together that the other thing that happens when you open your intuition is that your imagination becomes stronger, which means your ability to manifest becomes a lot more powerful.
So does it work with perception too? Like you perceive something happening a certain way, but it really didn't. That's your perception. So.
Right, but when something happens a certain way and it goes through one of our filters, those filters were created by suppressing these feelings we didn't want. And when you reclaim the feeling, the filter goes away. So, like I said with that girl, I was shy for 20 years of my life. I didn't see myself as shy. I saw the problems with women. Women don't like Brian. There's nothing wrong with me. But there's, that was a filter. It was like a lens through which I saw the world. And by re-experiencing what I had suppressed and realizing that the rejection wasn't actually happening anymore, it was just a memory, the filter went away. So I mean, literally, beginning that day, I could have conversations with women and look them in the eye and not be afraid of being rejected. I've looked you in the eye more in the last 10 minutes than I looked anybody in the eye until I was about 30 years old. Question?
Is it just things that happen as a child?
No. No, but it's about orders of magnitude too. I mean, if the waitress at the diner gave you an ugly look today when she handed you your eggs, maybe you didn't want to feel that, and so you didn't want to feel it. And that got stuck in your body too. But that's not something you actually have to work out, right? You get home and you're like, oh yeah, she gave me an ugly look, and then it's over. You remember, But yeah, it's the things in childhood that we've completely forgotten about that impact us the most. When Patrick asked me about that girl rejecting me, I had completely forgotten about her. I had no idea. The memory blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh, that did happen. I completely forgot. Mm-hmm. Yes, another question? And then we need to move on. Yes?
No, right here.
No, you're good for a question. No more.
There can be many kinds of traumas in
sure.
childhood.
Sure.
So, do you feel that there has to be some awareness of what that trauma was in order to have, if it's here, for example, it could be 10 different kinds of traumas that got to this point that are ready to go. So
Absolutely.
You said when he touched you, you knew exactly what it was. He knew exactly what it was.
He knew what it was. He had to tell me, and then it came into my consciousness.
Right. So what are your thoughts about having to know what it is to release it?
What my experience is that you don't have to consciously be aware of it, but it needs to be in your subconscious awareness, at least, which means your shoulders are tight. You're feeling like there's something there, So if it feels like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, you're carrying something around. If it feels like your shoulders are earrings, then you're avoiding something. There's, but if it's in your shoulders, then you're either consciously aware of it or you're subconsciously aware of it, and either one of those is enough. The last thing I'll want to leave you with one more thing, and then we'll see if we still have time for volunteer. In 2015, I survived the Valley Fire in Northern California. Maybe you don't remember, it's the other side of the country, but the Valley Fire in Lake County destroyed the business. I was working at Hot Springs. It got totally burned out, and we lost our house. At the time, she was my girlfriend. We lost our house, and when I drove out, there were trees on fire. I had to avoid trees on fire on both sides of the road. It was crazy. And my wife and I went to FEMA like 2 weeks later to, when they reopened the town and they were doing help and stuff, and they didn't believe that we had lost a house because we were not sad. We had no charge. That's the other thing that happens is your body will not let you suppress any feelings ever again when you do this work. And so we went through this crazy fire and it was traumatic, like it was a lot to go through, but the next day we were fine because we felt it as it happened. And so then we went to FEMA, went to Red Cross. They kept asking us our address over and over and getting it checked and checking our IDs and looking at us like, are you sure you lost a house? Like, they didn't believe that we had been through it because everybody else was sad and telling stories and in their drama. We were totally good. And then we lost our second house to a fire in the Sonoma County fire in 2017. So, in Santa Rosa burned and all that. So that was our second house. That one, we were in the woods. Nobody woke us up to warn us. Like I left to go to, I was in massage school at the time. I left to go to school and I'm driving down the mountain. I get into the neighborhood and the neighborhood's empty and houses are on fire. And I mean, there's telephone poles in the road I had to drive around and I had to drive back up the mountain through the fire to wake up my neighbors who were still sleeping. It was crazy. We had 20 minutes to pack our cars and get whatever we could, pictures off the walls and and then drive out and not even knowing if the road was going to be open. But the next day I wake up at my friend's house and I'm like, I look out the window, I'm like, where am I? I don't recognize this. I'm like, oh yeah, our hospital. Yeah, okay, back to sleep. Like just no charge, no residual charge on anything. That doesn't mean we don't suffer, it doesn't mean we don't get upset with each other. I mean, relationships, that's part of growth, but nothing sticks. So, like we'll have a little thing and 5 minutes later we're laughing and having fun again. Compared to 10 years ago in relationships when like a little spiff meant, oh, we had to break up or we had to split apart for a week or, like all this residual stuff.
You're fine.
I'm fine for time?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So what these sessions look like, you're going to get to see, but in order to elicit a volunteer, I will describe that you get on a massage table on your back, clothes on, and what I do is I look for tension in your shoulder, and if I find tension, I will read your body language, and then I'm going to try to jog your memory to figure out what it is that's keeping that muscle tight. And as soon as your subconscious recognizes there's a relationship between an old feeling and this tension in your body, the tension's going to go away, the feeling's going to go away, you're going to feel relief, and everybody in the room who's tuned in and loving what's going on will also feel the same relief. In my experience, no guarantees.
What kind of relief? Their relief or our own relief?
Your own relief.
For some
We're all gathered here today because we all have similar issues. Let's not kid ourselves. That's why we gather in groups, because we're all working on the same thing. So if I'm able to pick out a piece of that thing we're all working on, and the volunteer is willing to feel it and let it go, we should all feel the relief, including me. It's like my favorite way to heal is to help other people. So. Does everybody here like do Reiki or do other, like hands up? Okay, so that's why the room feels so awesome. Any more questions before I ask for who's interested in volunteering? Anything? Wow, so you get it? So that's 30 years and 20 minutes. And you're sponges. That was awesome. So, thank you. Anybody interested in volunteering? You want anybody? Anybody? You want? Okay, so let me just. Alright, come on. You've got a smile. Let me turn this to the side. Your smile's good too.
Maria.
Maria? Brian?
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Have you had work like this before? Or had any healing work or done anything
Yes.
before? You have? Okay. And you don't mind being on camera?
No.
No? You know it's going on YouTube, right? Probably a million people. Look, come over here. And let's see. How about put your head at this end on your back, ankles off the table at that end. You're going to scoot down a little bit. Yeah, just maybe back up a little bit. There you go. Yeah, great. And then lean back. Okay, now you got to scoot down about 3 inches. It's just so your knees don't distract you. Another inch. resting bird.
I did.
Okay, lay down. How old are you?
I'm 40.
40. I would not have guessed that. You're doing really well.
Thank you.
Can you guess how old I am?
I would say 56.
You know, until I was 36, I looked 19. I'm 53. I just had a birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I doubled my life expectancy. Okay, so let's get in here. So just drop your shoulder, whatever that means to you. Are you feeling tension in there?
It's mainly, I feel tension,
Where do you feel up higher?
I feel it right there,
Right up here.
by my, the muscles attached to my neck.
Right, it goes all the way up to your ear. All right, so that's about here. There it is. Drop your shoulder. Feel that muscle right there.
Mm-hmm.
That muscle is supposed to be on the outside of your shoulder blade, but years ago it got tight and went underneath, and it's been stuck there for a long time. So just feel it. This feels like something around 10 or 12 years old, and were you ever prevented from doing what you wanted, like prevented from joining a sports team or?
Well, my one day, I was a tomboy,
Uh-huh.
and my dad said I couldn't play with boys anymore.
Wow.
And he forbid me, all the boys were playing field hockey, or street hockey,
Mhm.
in the street in the neighborhood, and he wanted me to play with the lawyer girl,
Mhm.
but she was snooty and I didn't play with her. So he kept me from going outside and I couldn't play anymore with boys.
Right on. You feel how that muscle started to twitch a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So did that make you feel that you weren't wanted as who you are? Like, did that make you feel wrong for being a tomboy, or?
Well, I was going through adolescence, becoming a woman, so
Yeah?
I cried a lot and I was really upset that I couldn't be who I wanted to be and just be a tomboy.
There, see how that muscle opened up? You've almost got it. Just say it's safe to be a tomboy.
It's safe to be a tomboy.
How about it's safe to be me?
It's safe to be me.
What's your name again?
Maria?
Sure, we're gonna be good friends. Feel it's right there?
Oh yeah, I feel it.
Yeah. There's a piece you're not trusting. We'll figure it out. It's it right there. There it is. Did you feel like you had to hide being a tomboy in high
Yeah.
school?
Yes,
Yeah. So just say it's safe to be me.
it's safe to be me. That really hurts.
Well, the good news is, it's the last time you ever have to feel it. It's been hurting a long time, but you were numb to it. Well, drop your shoulder. I think you got it. I think that's all you had to realize is that it hurts. There it is. See how that's different?
Yeah,
Just a flatter on the table.
yes.
Good. I did one of these while you weren't working. Let's do this side. Are they even? Or does this side feel flatter now? On the table?
It feels a lot looser.
A lot looser than this side?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll even you out. No. We don't want you walking out of here crooked. That's a bad advertisement. Okay, so drop your shoulder. The good news is that today is the first day of the rest of your life. And the flip side of it being safe to be you is that it's safe to do what you want. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So say it out loud. It's safe to do what I want.
It's safe to do what I want.
Good. Feel that muscle. You feel it twitching there?
Yeah.
You getting any memories come up of times you didn't do what you wanted? There's one.
I couldn't do what the boys did. I wanted to play football. Boys had fun and girls couldn't have fun.
Thank you. So. Full disclosure, my life was the opposite. I thought girls had fun and boys didn't. So right here, right now, today, is it safe to do what you want?
It's safe to do what I want.
Drop the shoulder. Check it out. Yeah, how's that feel? Yes, sir. Okay, let's stand up. Show off to everybody. Stand up. How you feel?
A little lightheaded.
Lightheaded? Good, good. That'll last a few minutes. You might also get clammy in your hands, and that's because it's adrenaline that was holding your muscles tight. And now that your muscles relax, that adrenaline's going to flush through your system.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. It won't last very long.
Okay.
If your hands get clammy, just flush them.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, my pleasure. You want to hug? No, thank you. This work is not about locating and healing individual events like we did. I mean, that's what it looks like. But this is training our subconscious to know the difference between reality right now and memories from back when. Eventually, if you continue this work, your body will recognize when things are real and when they're just in your memory. And stuff that's in your memory will lose all of its charge. So these things don't have to impact you today. And they don't anymore. I mean, those things you let go of, they're gone.
Great.
You know, your shoulders will get tight again. It'll be because another issue will bubble up. But if you feel the muscle and like see if you can get your subconscious to like try to figure out what it is, maybe you can get it to let it go. Or I've got workshops on YouTube. The workshops do not teach you how to do this body work, but they use the same information that creates the body work, creates a workshop. And if you do the workshop, you may or may not ever have to do the private training. I do private sessions to get people to take my workshops. I know a lot of teachers do workshops to get people to do the private sessions, they do the opposite.
Do you train others how to do it?
Yeah. It's a 10-month program to learn how to do this. The workshop, though, is only 4 hours on YouTube. It's 37 videos that you can do in about a month. The information in the videos, if you do the exercises, will do the same thing for you and your body as the private training does. My wife has never had private training. I refuse to work on her. She's my wife. I'm not going to like create that relationship with her. But she's done the workshop 5 or 6 times. She also had no children after the fires. She also does not hold on to stuff. My old model for this work was I would teach weekend workshops and then believing that one day when I got really famous that I would just charge more for my workshops and that's how I would make money. After the fires, when I realized how impactful the work is, because we had no charge, like we just don't carry charge anymore, I realized that what I had been taught was more powerful and more impactful than I suspected, and that I needed to put it on YouTube and give it away for free. So now the knowledge, the information I don't charge for, it's free on YouTube, and I only charge for my time. So if you want me to come back and teach a workshop, like, you get to pay for that, but you can do the workshop online for free. And the workshop will give you the same results as doing private training. So I don't want you to think I came here to like try to sell you on doing this private training. And it's really sexy and exciting if people really want to do it. But don't feel like it's necessary. You can take the workshop online and there's a card in the back. And I've got to be done. Well, I'm on time limit, sorry. Do we have a minute for questions or are we good?
You have time.
I do? Okay. Yeah.
First of all, I really want to thank you. It was a really fascinating presentation, and I love your vibration.
Oh, thank you.
It's very relaxed and very authentic and down to earth. You
Thank
always
you.
seem to be that kind of person. I'm Ken, by the way.
Ken?
Yeah, the one you talked to on the phone.
Oh, right on. Nice to have a face to it. Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting that we talk a lot about the facts versus the story. Seems to be a lot of the core of spirituality. We expand it out into the universe. It's the story of who we are versus the reality of what we really are.
Right.
But I really appreciate the way you presented it as not solely as an intellectual construct, which we can all grasp fairly easily,
Right.
but to bring home the idea of how energetically, I think Chaz would know a lot about this because he does this kind of work as well, that we store so much. So it's really helped me to think about and percolate about differentiating between, okay, what is real and what isn't, and I really do feel drawn to like religion material.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, my teachers love to say that our past can't tell us who we are, it can only tell us who we were. But who we were no longer exists. Your past can't really tell you about right here, right now. The past won't tell you about the past. But if you get stuck trying to figure out your past, you'll miss out on like the fun and love that's happening right here, right now. So, the past has its place, and I've had crazy things go on in my past, most of which I won't share because I don't want you staring at me in horror. But that, those things help define who I am today, but they don't dictate the direction of my life, and they used to. And that's the beautiful thing with this work is I have all of my memories, but there's no charges. So I mean, I could tell you things from my life that you really would like your jaw drop and you would be in horror. Not because I'm charged about them, but because they might rekindle charges in you. So like, they just don't stop. So, hang on. One more question, yes.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for being here. I don't think most of you may realize, but Brian, you came in from California for this weekend, and he's working out with Sharon, Reverend Sharon Cockle, who has a place, Attuned with Spirit, down on Bethlehem Pike. And he's there this afternoon and Monday afternoon. I don't know if there's any openings.
There are some still left.
There are still some left, so if you're interested in that, talk to Brian or Sharon.
Or Sean. Sean's got
Or
the
Sean,
schedule.
who's doing some videoing before you leave today, because he's not anymore from this area.
No, I'm not. I do live in Sonoma County. I did fly out here just to speak here today and to discussions and to see if you'd be interested in, taking my workshop sometime. So I can come back. I've got friends in this town. I'd love to come back and do workshops or sessions if you'd like to do my training. The training, if you do it, private training like on the table, is 6 or 7 sessions over 6 months to a year. And then you're done. Your body is just like, you won't be completely healed, but your body will know how to heal itself. So that you're walking down the street and something irks you and then you see somebody like, oh, that looks like my 3rd grade teacher. And then you relax because you realize it's just a memory. It's not something happening right now. Your body will just heal on its own. The workshop does the same thing. It's a weekend class. And like I said, you can do it on YouTube. My highest choice is that you watch your videos on YouTube. And then, instead of teaching as a two-day class, I can come teach it as an afternoon and just answer your questions instead of teaching the entire class.
How do we find you on YouTube?
There's a card on the back. The address is free of limits. So it's literally youtube.com/free of limits, all one word. But it's on the postcard and I've got plenty. Yep, free of limits. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I do speak in California, but I don't get to speak in a place like Circle of Miracles. So it's totally worth coming here. And anytime